background I work with other than couples and families. But I'm also a certified trauma recovery specialist. And so I guess I do still call it the privilege of working with individuals who have been affected by trauma of all sorts. And so often people think of trauma and they think of something really horrific. My voice has been traumatized from the fires, so forgive me for that. But you know, trauma comes in many shapes and sizes and very different ways. And so it isn't always something that ends in a homicide. Doesn't have to be a car accident. It doesn't have to be any of that, but it's something that takes you off of your game, let's say. So I imagine that just hearing about this rash of burglaries, that some of you who live in the area may have been feeling a little anxious, a little concerned. And then I'm certain that there are some of you who have actually experienced the break-in. And in that case, a lot of emotions are probably running rampant through you all right now. A lot of times, one of the biggest problems that happens when you have a home burglary, you're not hurt physically yourself. Much of the time you're not there. But there's a certain amount of violation that happens when someone comes into your home. You remember when you were a kid and somebody would take your stuff? You didn't like that. I know I certainly didn't. I was a brat. But you, so this is, it's really a very traumatizing thing to have someone be inside your place and you're not there. There's the question of what did they see, not just what did they take. You know, much of the time things are replaceable, but your peace of mind is something that it takes a lot of work to get back. And so that's where the trauma comes in. Much of the time also, a lot of the thinking that happens is not so much about what actually happened. Like, okay, they came into the house, they took this, they took that, they went into this place, they went into that place. But our minds go to the what if. And so we start thinking more about what could have happened. And that's the thing that will cause a lot of anxiety. And anxiety builds and it turns into other things. Person who is experiencing anxiety is off of their game. They're not feeling the way that they are accustomed to feeling. When you don't feel like yourself, that can be sad and depressing, right? And so it's almost like a domino effect. You can start out being afraid, and then that fear turns to anger because you're like, how dare they come into my place? And that then starts the mind again to going. And so there's certain things that you can do. One of the main things that you can do is fight back in a safe manner, which is what we're doing here. And I'm so glad to have gotten a call from Rash to see that you're not taking this lying down. Because that's often what people who are out there terrorizing other people's belongings and terrorizing their peace of mind, they expect that no one's gonna do anything. And criminals think they're really smart. Do you all watch the television programs that I watch where they always get caught? They always get caught, but they keep doing it. So that's a whole nother Oprah, and I won't talk about that today because I work with them too. But the thing of it is that you're doing something about it. You have to take steps to make yourself feel safe. So I'm glad that Mr. Zach is here to talk about the ways that you can alarm your place, that you can have cameras up. You know, if a person is coming down the street and like you said, they're touching the doors and they're checking to see who didn't lock their door. So if you are proactive in your own safety, then that can give you that peace of mind that can be warped once something like this happens. And it doesn't have to be that it happened directly to you. If it happened to a neighbor, that's way too close for comfort sometimes, right? And if it's happening, and it's been happening for a while, it becomes a matter of not if, but when. And all of that can cause the anxiety. So there are a lot of ways, once something like this happens, then the thing to do is to fight for your peace of mind. And so there are a lot of things that most people don't know about because unless you've been the victim of a crime, then there's no need for you to know. But there is something called victims of crime. There's a county-wide victims of crime and there's a city-wide victims of crime. And they actually offer all kinds of services for people who have, I prefer to use the word survive, but survivors of crime. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a violent crime that they're able to help you with. They can provide you with counseling services. They, depending on the crime, they can help people relocate. If it's been something traumatic happens in your home and you don't feel safe there anymore, then they do that. They have funding for that. And so I work with victims of crime. When I started working as a therapist, I actually worked for a place called Loved Ones Victim Services. Now my clients there were survivors of violent crimes such as homicide. And so I worked with the families of people who had lost their loved ones to homicide, drunk drivers, all of that kind of thing. But we also worked with people who had a young girl who had been living in her place for 6 days and came home to the burglar. And so obviously that will rattle you. And so there's services out there. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist in private practice. I work out of 2 locations, and sometimes people don't want to do individual therapy, so perhaps group therapy would be something that is better for you, because in that case, you feel the support of others immediately. There's some power in the, yeah, I know what you mean. Right? I mean, we obviously know that right now with the whole Me Too thing, sadly, right? And so there's some support, and there's also power in numbers. And so I always believe that 2 heads are better than 1, so imagine a room full of people sitting in a circle sometimes. There are all kinds of ways that maybe something that someone thinks of that will help them. You're like, oh, I never thought of that. And I always am the one that says, gosh, I wish I had thought of that first. But in the case that you didn't, it's always good to take ideas from others as well. So make sure that you are proactive in getting the help that you need. There's no shame and no guilt. And sadly, I find that people who have been victimized often feel guilty. And that is just that's one of the worst things about this. How dare other people cause you to have emotions that you don't even have to own. And so I really encourage you to speak up. Use your voice, because you do have one. And that's the one thing that a burglar cannot take away. So I'll be here for questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I think that Sean spoke to